Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
All right, we're all here back to another adventure in Southern Sense, and I apologize for starting late, but my camera program just updated and fouled everything up.
Well, we're here now.
We're here now, and you know, for 16 years, I've never started a show without something screwing up. So I'm ready. I'm batting 1,000 right now.
There you have it.
I'm your host with the least mostest, Annie. And along with my co-host, who is oh so patient and oh so genteel, Hannah Davis with the FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, US.org.
There you go. That's me.
I got something right today. Holy Moses. I mean, talk to her last minute screw up.
Yeah, I popped in and I was like, we got 30 seconds to showtime. Where is she? So I figured it was something technical and we'd figure it out. So
oh man, it's just unbelievable. But anyway, we got ourselves a couple of great guests. We got Ryan Morgan from the Epoch Times, or as I say, Epoch Times, joining us at the first half, and then someone who came out from my alma mater, NYPD retired Chief John Chell, who threw his hat in the ring for mayor of New York City.
God, hoping he wins. What would that be? 2029? 2027?
2028. I think 2028.
Okay.
So he's got himself a 2-year head start. And, you know, this may be one of the few times you've seen independent actually winning a race. So he's running on the independent.
Is he running as an independent? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is going to be very interesting. But one thing New York City needs, one thing New York City needs is law and order coming back to the forefront. You know, with the craziness that's going on under the current mayor, as I call him, mad, damn me, Mondale.
Yeah, he hasn't even been in, what? Has it been 6 months?
It's been more than that. Yeah, it's been a year.
It's been a year? Okay. I mean, it's just insane. The goalpost continues to move. They're left as a joke, woke as a joke, you know, and it just seems like every day it's a new headline of just something happening, criminals not being held accountable, people getting hurt, people upset, people moving. A lot of people have left New York.
Yeah. And it's funny because he actually makes Mayor Mandami actually makes Governor Gavin Newsom, or as I call him, Gruesome Newsom, look sane.
Yeah, he makes him look centered. Yeah.
Oh, man. So we're gonna have a lot of fun chatting with him. And
Ryan, he's sharp.
Oh, Ryan is sharp, you know, and those that are watching know that we had to take off last week. So we had a clip of him that I inserted into last week's show, so that at least they get a little taste of Ryan and follow his columns a lot more diligently, see what he has to say, because he's a foreign correspondent dealing especially in military affairs.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to talk with him. Matter of fact, I tried to send a message over to him, a story I would hope that he would break, since he does handle military affairs, but we'll talk to him when he gets on air about that. Someone who's running for congressional seat, the congressional seat that Nancy Mace currently holds.
Okay.
Who was dishonorably discharged from the military, and touts. Oh, yes, we're going to get into that. I'm going to leave the little hook. I'm going to leave the hook dangling on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, see if he can pick up the ball and just, if we can splash across the front page of the Epoch Times, maybe other news outlets will pick it up. And
Yeah.
This guy has a snowball's chance in hell in becoming the next congressional leader for CD1. But if he gets through this election cycle without his background being exposed, leaves open the chance for him to run again.
Right. Yeah.
And that's something I don't want to see personally.
Yeah.
So with that said, we got a lot to talk about, especially with you on immigration stuff that's going on. It's getting crazy out there.
Yeah. Luckily, a lot of the immigration news seems to be positive. Except for some left-wing states, but the stuff that's coming out of the federal side is wildly optimistic.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that as the show goes along. But to move things along, those that watch the show know that we start each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And this hero, actually someone that Chief Chell knew and worked with. And I do believe I met this kid at one point, because he's Italian, and in the NYPD, one of the things I was a representative for the area of Brooklyn North, the north end of Brooklyn in New York City, for the Italian Americans in the police department. I know my last name doesn't look Italian. My nickname was not Italian, but trust me, the part I sit on is Italian. Oh, don't. Oh, please don't, because I am half Italian. It's a joke, folks. It's a joke.
I mean, it's kind of the same way for me, being half Hispanic. I'm Mexican, but Davis doesn't ring.
No. But I do believe I met this kid at a couple of the meetings, and I retired 2 years before his line of duty death. So it has a special meaning to me, and I'm sure Chief Chell will appreciate the fact that this show is then going to be dedicated to police officer Anthony Mosomillo. He was killed in action on May 26th of 1998.
We're going to begin with the family of a murdered NYPD officer trying to stop the parole of a woman who pleaded guilty in his death.
Officer Anthony Mosomillo was killed in 1998, and a woman who pleaded guilty for her role in the case was about to be paroled, but a judge delayed the release after a plea from his family.
Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan has our lead story tonight.
The families of police officer Anthony Mosomillo, his wife and children, and the police officers who were his brothers and sisters left federal court today having gotten as close to justice as current law allows. But we're fully aware that 2 years from now, Betsy Ramos will be free.
Wow, in 2 more years, again, around Christmas time, she will be released. I can't process that right now.
Anthony Mosomillo was gunned down in the line of duty on May 26, 1998. Betsy Ramos, a felon then out on parole for a federal heroin conviction, was later convicted of manslaughter for her role in the murder. Ramos served more than a decade in prison and would have been released, but the feds wanted to keep her in jail because she violated the terms of her parole all those years ago. Today, the judge agreed to keep her in prison for 2 more years.
Betsy Ramos is a savage. She belongs in jail. She does not belong on the streets.
Our only regret is that he can only sentence to 2 more years. So the public has to be careful, because in 2 years, this repeat misfit will be out on the street.
Mosomillo's daughter, just a baby when he was murdered, is in the NYPD Academy now. When she graduates, she will be given her father's shield number and continue her father's legacy of service to her city.
Yes. We're grateful to Judge Garifas today for making the maximum sentence. We're thankful to the AUSA who put the effort into this case. We thank them both for doing the job that the parole board didn't have the courage to do, but the federal court did. Our only regret is that he can only sentence to 2 more years. So the public has to be careful, because in 2 years, this repeat misfit will be out on the street. We warn our federal marshals, our court officers, all that work in the prison, be careful. We're sending you a cop killer. One who has crocodile tears in her eyes, but no sorrow in her heart. A heart that's full of evil. A heart that's killed a hero police officer. A heart that broke the hearts of a hero family. Killed his father. Ruined many lives. We saw the victim's impact statement today. What should have been heard by the state parole board, but we heard it today. There wasn't a dry eye in those pews. Every police officer put their family in their shoes. Everyone that has a family, a brother, a husband, a father, a mother, could feel their pain. We heard a police officer recount that day when her partner was gunned down, moment by moment, and what she lives with till this day. And all this pain caused by that repeat misfit who lied time and time again, who was allowed benefit of the doubt more times than she should. I think 6. So you can't take that evil out of a woman. So again, our federal counterparts, and in 2 years, our fellow citizens, look out. There's a cop killer out there. But for the next 2 years, because of the AUSA and this federal judge, we'll all be safe. Now, I'm going to introduce to you some heroes. We know Anthony was a hero. We knew it when he died. We knew it when we shouldered him and brought him into that church on his last day. But there's a number of heroes in that family. Heroes that live every day with this pain that doesn't go away. That, quite frankly, because of their courage and strength, gives these police officers, these other line-of-duty families, the strength to go on. Our hero police officer's widow, Margaret Mosomillo.
I want to thank the judge for giving us the opportunity to be heard, and for keeping Anthony's killer off the street for a while longer. It is incredibly hard to keep reliving our pain and reopening old wounds, but we have no choice. All of us, every one of the line of duty family members you see here today, we have to do this if we want to see some balance of justice. But we won't even be here if the parole board hadn't denied us that right. The parole board has been unspeakably cruel in the way they treated us. They can let out a cop killer, they can let out anybody, and they will. Something has to change. People in power need to stop standing up for criminals and start standing up for victims, for crime victims. Thank you. Sorry.
Margaret, well said. And that's the problem. We're in this problem because the state parole board refused to do their job. It's also my honor to introduce Sal Mosomillo, who we heard from in that court, the brother of our hero police officer, a retired police officer himself, and told the story how he had to break it to his father that his other son's not coming home.
I just want to thank the judge. He did what the parole board refused to do, that they went behind our backs. I'd like to thank Patty Lynch for never turning his back on my family, and all the members that are here. Thank you.
All right, and we are back. This show is dedicated to Officer Mosomillo and to all of those that served our nation, whether they are first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services, or even those who have served in the military, from the birth of this great nation through to today and into our hopeful future. God bless each and every one. On a side note, the gentleman that was just talking the last half of that video, Patty, or I call him Patty, Patrick J. Lynch, is the now former PBA president, Police Benevolent Association president, basically our union delegate, at the head of the union, actually. And I worked with Patty. I rode with him a couple of times. And if he's not a cop's cop, I don't know who is. So God bless Patty for pursuing this for all these years and getting justice. I wish we could be more, but he did a hell of a job. God bless you, Patty. This cheers to you, my water to you. I gotta drop him a note and let him know I did this for Tony. But anyway, we got something I sent you going on, and you were talking about positive things going on with this administration. About they're looking at now the attorneys that were helping in these amnesty cases.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were being coached and told what to say, whether it's the truth or not. And that would cost them their law license and possibly even jail time if they did promote perjury.
Yeah. I think fraud exists throughout all immigration channels. And usually people think of the immigrants as the ones, facilitating the fraud on them by themselves. But a lot of these immigrants actually hire immigration attorneys. They seek counsel, especially when they're already here. And they're making money and able to afford counsel. And a lot of the times we're seeing an uptick in not only the immigrant themselves, but their attorneys committing fraud, knowingly filling out forms incorrectly, knowingly falsifying information to kind of pad their case and give them more of a reason to remain in the United States. And we see this, with parole, we see this with refugee status, but it's particularly prevalent in asylum. Asylum, anybody can apply for asylum as long as you're already within the United States borders or at a port of entry. You could apply all you want, but you have to meet a certain threshold. You have to pass a credible fear test and basically prove that you're being persecuted because of your political affiliation or something along those lines. So say Christians in the Middle East, they can apply once they're here for asylum because they're being persecuted because of their religious affiliation. Or a gay person in the Middle East could apply for asylum while in the United States because they're being persecuted because of their lifestyle. So there's certain things, certain elements that have to exist. And so what these lawyers are doing is essentially just lying and padding information, saying things that aren't true to try and keep their client in the United States. And so what the current administration is doing is cracking down on this fraud. And so the DHS sent out a memo that was, cleared by the White House and the president, basically saying, hey, we're not enacting any new laws. There's already anti-fraud laws that exist on the books. What we want to do is develop anti-fraud policies that are designed to enforce the pre-existing laws. And so, and these lawyers, if they're caught, they're subject to disciplinary action. They could lose their license. They could be, expulsion
Disbarred?
from something like that. Yeah, but being disbarred is kind of the top heavy gauntlet. There are steps to that. They could be told that they're not allowed to operate in the immigration courts anymore, and then they could try and move to maybe family law or something else. Then ultimately, yes, that's one of the biggest punishments is being disbarred completely. They're out of work, and then of course fines or prison time. And fraud has been a thing for a long time. And I think it was just a few years ago there was a man his fraud was kind of layered. He was pretending to be an attorney and then filed over 100 fraudulent asylum cases. And so his was kind of a double whammy, and he's in prison now. I think over 20 years he got. But there was a man not too long ago in New York City, a year or so ago, who got 5 years in prison. And he was an actual barred attorney, and he was committing asylum fraud through an asylum fraud ring up there in New York City. And so it's very prevalent, and it kind of goes to show that it's a double-edged sword. You've got the immigrant coming in here illegally, knowingly committing fraud, and then whether or not they're convincing or lying to their attorney, they're going with it, and they should be able to snuff out the truth, And so, ultimately, it's good though that the administration is cracking down on this because it's been prevalent for years, and no administration has really taken it seriously. And this kind of couples with back in March, the Trump administration released another memo not too long ago directing AGs, attorney generals, to put sanctions on lawyers who purposely file frivolous litigation against the United States in regards to immigration specifically. And so I think they're really cracking down, and we're probably going to see some change, and probably at the same time more of those stories that are coming to light, and more people getting prison sentences.
Yeah, no, some of what you just said caused me to think back. I saw a clip of someone interviewing immigrants that were here illegally, and this one guy came across legally because he claimed he wanted a sex change. Yeah, and he came across saying, I'm Hispanic. I come from this country where being this way is not socially acceptable. I'll get beat up. I'll be this and that. And he lied.
Yeah, I don't.
He essentially lied. And when they were doing the interview, they said, "Well, how long have you been here?" Well, it was like maybe a year or so. And have you gone for any treatment? He was like, "Oh yeah, I will. I am. I will. I will." Yeah, right. When hell freezes over.
It's really hard to pass one of those credible fear tests. You've got to show actual persecution and not just the concept that it could happen. It's got to be tangible. It's got to have unfortunately already happened to you. And so, like I said, if someone wants to use their sexuality as a way to get into the United States on asylum, they're going to have to be residing in a Middle Eastern country. Mexico is not persecuting gay people. It's just not like that.
But how many of those cases were actually pursued in full investigation under the Biden administration?
Yeah.
We had this 4-year period under creepy Uncle Joe that anyone came across, and any little excuse they gave, they got a pass.
Yeah.
No investigation, no background checks, nothing.
Sometimes they weren't even doing the credible fear interviews. They were just taking your word for it, and then would release you into the interior of the nation and tell you to come back at a certain point. Not to be confused with the coming back for the court dates, but coming back for a credible fear interview. And at that point, they're long gone. They're not coming back. But yeah, you've got to meet a very high threshold. You've got to be being persecuted for affiliating with a specific group, for your religion, for your political belief, that kind of thing. If you want asylum, and so that's why we see a lot of people coming from the Middle East that have credible fear of various things. People coming from Russia, and so they come here, and people coming from Africa as well, and they're well-founded fears. But you see people who are abusing that system. We saw that it was kind of green-lighted under the previous administration you just brought up. I mean, they rolled out the red carpet, the welcome mat for people. And so not only did they kind of green light the fraud to exist, and then on top of it, people just jumped on it. And that's why we had like almost everyone who was entering the United States under the Biden administration, the majority of them were all claiming asylum. And fortunately for the global population is not being persecuted at that rate. And so obviously most of those were fraudulent. Like I said, it's a really high threshold that if you meet it, it's very unfortunate. And so people are lying to get in. And when most migrants are just economic migrants, they're coming here purely for economic reasons, for a better life, for better family opportunities. And so they've got to wait their turn.
Is not a reason.
No. If you're going to do it that way, you got to go through the legal process. You're not going to be able to cut the line through some kind of asylum loophole.
Yeah. I mean, if you turn around, Steve Hilton is a perfect example. And I interviewed him when he first came over to the United States. I haven't been able to get him back on since he's now a major national figure.
Yeah.
But when he came over, and Nick, I'm sorry, I just forgot his last name. Nick Adams. Okay. I interviewed both of them, and both of them came over and said, we came here because we want to live in the United States. We want to be a citizen in the United States. We believe in what the United States stands for. And look at these two men now, how they are pivotal figures within our nation for the good. You got Steve Hilton now running for governor, trying to get Gruesome Newsom out of that seat.
And that's what we want, is people coming over here because ideally because they're not fleeing anything. Ideally because they don't have anything horrible in their past. They want to come here because they want to be Americans. They want to come here to better themselves and better the nation at the same time. And that's the type of immigration that people want. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that, especially under the previous administration. But luckily, deportation numbers are record high. And so a lot of those people who came here under fraudulent asylum claims know that they're getting cracked down on, and so they're leaving willingly.
Yeah. I just had to text the agent for our next guest. I apologize. If he doesn't show up, it's going to be completely my fault. I mean, the last few days have just been hellacious, and I was up late last night trying to get the show together, and I don't think I sent him the link to sign in.
Oh, Ryan or Chief Chell?
Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, he had an interesting article on totally not my wheelhouse, but one he wrote a couple of days ago about troops having their phone locations tracked. I wanted to ask him about that. So
yes.
Yeah.
So I hope he does call in. Otherwise, we'll cover it anyway. But I sent you a couple of things also. Good Lord. Here we go. I got it listed. I actually have it paper clipped together, and it says Hannah on it.
I see.
It says Hannah on it. Thanks to John for you.
At first, I thought you were saying I wrote it, and I was like, that title does not look familiar to me. I don't think I wrote
that. Which is the first article, about the immigration fraud being investigated.
Yeah.
And, if we can, I mean, people say that being an attorney is the dirtiest business in the United States.
I think it could be. I think it's very helpful, and when you need one, you do. But and going pro se is not always the answer. But yeah, it's a dirty job. I always see people cracking down on defense attorneys. How could you defend them? It's their job. You know what I mean? But it's not their job to fraudulently file asylum claims or to fluff information or that kind of thing. So across the board, not just immigration attorneys, any attorney that's willfully lying, they got to go. They got to face jail time. They got to get disbarred or something like that. But like I said, I mean, they're cracking down on asylum fraud cases. A lot of people are leaving. A lot of the individuals who came under the previous administration were people who had filed fraudulent asylum claims. And right now, I think DHS released numbers a couple of weeks ago saying we've had over 3 million individuals deport from the United States. 2.2 million of those were self-deportations. 900,000 of those, almost 1 million of those, were just this last month alone. And so it's wildly successful, the deportation measures that the current administration are enacting. And it's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of illegal aliens that came under the previous administration. But at least this current administration is doing something about it.
Yeah. And the one good thing is that a lot of them are also self-deporting.
Yeah. Over 2 million of them have.
Yeah. And, everyone's going, oh, you're so mean and so horrible about doing this and that. But if you look at under President Truman, he had what they called Operation Wetback. I'm not making this up, but it was actually the name of the operation where they rounded up illegal aliens. You had a choice. You either self-deport or we're going to arrest you and force you back over. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that.
Yeah. And this administration has made it so easy for people to self-deport. They'll give you a travel package. They'll pay a stipend, cash assistance. They'll get you an airline, that kind of thing. They made it really easy, and they give a promise. Yeah. they've made a promise that, if you wait a few years and you come back the right way, we're not gonna hold your past illegal entry against you. And we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. But and it's also just wildly it's a cost saver all around. Everybody's saving money all around. The migrant, because they don't have to pay for counsel to stay here, and there's no lengthy detention or removal proceedings on the government's end. Everybody's saving money when people leave and they self-deport.
Well, despite my screw up, not sending this kid the link to get onto the show, he is patiently waiting in the green room.
He hacked his way in.
Hey, listen, the good Lord is looking after me. He is definitely looking after me today because I need some help. Let's bring back on from the Epoch Times, Ryan Morgan. Oh, look, you're so dapper in your eyeglasses. Oh, my goodness. If I had a son, I'd kiss you right now. You would be my son.
I'm going to log off.
Anyway. Oh, geez. I got to see where I had you put aside. Here we go. Here's my list of questions.
Here we go, rapid fire.
Oh, good, great. Okay. Okay, here we go. We're talking about the Trump ceasefire. It's all over the news. Do we have one? Don't we have one? Are they going to comply? Won't they comply? And we hear so many different things. Will they give up their uranium or won't they? And are we going to go whole hog on them or won't we? And everyone is just watching the TV going, what the heck is going on? In the meantime, the stock market is going on a roller coaster. That's for you, Ryan.
Yeah, to answer your question, where are we? I'd say we're about 95, somewhere between 95 and 99%. It seems like we're pretty close as of this morning. President Trump, said, he basically laid out the terms of the deal, and the terms he described, they do line up with, past comments from the Iranian side. So, it's always a good sign when you see both sides describing relatively the same terms. As far as I think there's a second question there about Iran's nuclear program. So it does feel, and this is the part that I'm a little bit hesitant on. The Iranians haven't said a lot specifically about nuclear as they've described the recent terms, but Trump has said. Essentially, what's going to happen is the United States is going to supervise the Iranians as they dig up their buried uranium stocks at the nuclear sites that the U.S. struck last year during Operation Midnight Hammer, if you recall. And then, we're going to supervise them as they pull that out, and I guess take those uranium stockpiles on, and we may, try and dispose of them in place, or otherwise we'll just, take it back into our custody. That's what Trump described this morning. The Iranians certainly have talked about maintaining some level of uranium enrichment capability. It seems like the issue we're really focused on right now is that highly enriched uranium. It's about 60% purity, which is, a few technical steps away from weapons grade. That is the main issue of concern. But as we see this deal come into play, it sounds like it's going to be like a 60-day window where these negotiations are going to play out, primarily focused on Iran's nuclear program. And we're probably going to hear a lot of talk about not just what happens with the highly enriched uranium, but does Iran get to retain some level of uranium enrichment capability at a lower purity level?
Oh, the question also should be is, are we going to get all of it? Or are they going to turn around and
where's it?
Where's the guarantee of that?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be one of the tough issues is the level of verification. We might have a deal and we might have an understanding of the terms, but tracking down and accounting for all of that uranium might be a tough issue. I would assume that we're going specifically for the highly enriched uranium and tracking that down. I would assume that we would be playing for all of it. Right before the start of the conflict back in February, during the discussions, the Iranians did come out and say something to the effect of, we have enough fissile material for, it could potentially be converted down the line into 11 nuclear weapons. So that gives us kind of an estimate. I think there was something on the order of like half a ton worth of uranium that we're talking about here. So we have a rough idea of approximately how much we should be looking for, assuming that the Iranians back during those negotiations back in February were giving us a full read as they were in those negotiations. And we'll probably see some sort of framework where there will be inspections going on in conjunction with this this plan by us to recover the uranium, make sure that there's not other highly enriched stockpiles somewhere else that we're not aware of, and try and get a full accounting. But there is a trust issue here, and this is a pretty contentious relationship that we've had with the Iranians.
Wow, it's so much to uncover, because we don't know. Number one, did they give us an accurate accounting? And being radical Islam, country, they follow the rule of tequila. It's perfectly fine to lie to the infidel, the barbarian, or whatever you want to call us at that point. It's perfectly fine. They don't have to tell the truth.
Well, they don't
So
gain anything to tell the truth either.
No, they gain absolutely nothing. And they also used another Islamic state to do the negotiations for them from Pakistan. So they can lie to us, but they won't lie to the Pakistanis. However, it doesn't guarantee the Pakistanis are telling us the truth in return. So it is like, how far can we trust them to tell us the truth? And how far will this peace keep?
Yeah. I mean, you're outlining, I guess, what will be the, the kinds of uncertainties. And if we just take the example historically of the 2015 deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, what we ended up working out was, okay, there's this plan where the Iranians are not going to enrich past a certain level. But there were other issues that came into play that Trump cited. The Iranians have an increasingly sophisticated ballistic missile capability, and they have sponsorship of groups like Hezbollah, various Shia militias in Iraq, elsewhere throughout the Middle East that are of concern. And he cited those reasons as, hey, just because we have this nuclear deal doesn't mean that we have a sufficient framework for containing the threat that we see from Iran. So we're backing out of the deal. And that is, of course, when the Iranians started saying, okay, well, if there's no deal and you guys are putting sanctions back on us, we're going to ramp up our enrichment. So there is a trust breakdown there that we've seen historically. And this is going to be something that, even if we have a deal today, it's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to monitor for years to come.
I hate to sound daft, but what's the point in them having any uranium if it's not enriched to the level that it can be used as like weapons grade? I mean, is it just for control to say that they have some that they can equip at later points, or is there another use for something for the uranium if it's not at weapons level?
Yeah. So I mean, with low enriched, you can certainly do, nuclear energy, you can do nuclear research, things of that nature. But as you get to higher level purities, I mean, that is something to be concerned about. On one side, you might say, okay, they are getting closer to weapons grade material. On the other side, play devil's advocate here. Take the Iranians, try and put yourself in their shoes. After the U.S. backed out of the deal and started ramping up sanctions, what recourse do the Iranians essentially have to try and get back to that sanctions relief? Well, what they're going to do is they're going to increase their enrichment capacity as something that they can have, they're trying to create for themselves a bargaining chip that they can give back in order to get a return of that sanctions relief.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, they put themselves in this ambiguous position where they've tried to give themselves a bargaining chip, but it also decreases trust in them that they're getting closer to that nuclear weapon. It creates a level of uncertainty that actually makes it more difficult to negotiate with them.
Yeah, because I would not trust a single word they said. I'm thinking back to, I think it was about maybe 10 years ago, they actually tried to sail a nuclear sub to the East Coast. And very few people remember that. They didn't get far off the coast of Africa because they didn't have the ability to man the vessel the way it should be manned, like we would. They didn't make it, but it doesn't say that they've not honed their skills enough to do it another time. Because all they need to do is fire a low-level weapon over our cities to knock out all of our electricity. And we have no electricity, we have no defense. There's so many things I'm thinking about what they've done in the past that says I would not trust a single word they agree to.
I think a lot of the general populace kind of agrees with you, Annie. I think people are disgruntled, at least on the news outlets I read or the social media post I see. I think they're wondering why the current administration hasn't, gone the more harsher approach? I don't know, Ryan, if you have an answer for that, or if it's just a delicate situation. I mean, we don't always win by being harsh, and it's not my wheelhouse at all. So, Ryan, I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I'll kind of play devil's advocate here. I'll say that the trust issues go both ways. Back during the rise of ISIS, for example, the U.S. actually kind of loosely aligned with a lot of the same Iraqi militias that now tend to align with the Iranians. These are, Shia Iraqis versus predominantly Sunni ISIS members. And so there is kind of that Sunni Shia split within Islam, where the Shias, they'll oppose a group like ISIS, and so we find mutual alignment there, but they're more in line with the Iranians. And so there is that level of trust where, sometimes when we need an ally, we can use the Shia militias to our advantage to help fight ISIS, and then turn around a few months later and we're hammering we're raising up sanctions against the Iranians. We might do an assassination strike on Soleimani. And then, we start to see these low level conflicts, start to build up between us and these Sunni militias that are all over the place, or I'm sorry, these Shia militias that are all over the place. There is a lot of back and forth that kind of, these things get really muddy throughout history as we kind of build these sort of alliances of convenience over time, and we kind of shift and rotate our policy around. All throughout the Iraq War, for example, we were kind of balancing back and forth between the Sunnis and the Shias in Iraq, and trying to not give either side too much power. And you could argue that sometimes we didn't strike the right balance. Those are things to consider, and those are things that it might not mean a lot to us as Americans because we don't see the breakdown in that split very closely, but to people there on the ground in Iraq, they remember, this is when, the Americans put the Shias in power in Iraq and marginalized the Sunnis. And now we Sunnis have an axe to grind. We're going to create ISIS. And then, the Americans are not to be trusted. They're turning on us Sunnis again, and they're siding with the Shias and building up these militias. Yeah. So just, long answer made short. There is a lack of trust that just spans several decades here.
Yeah, for us as Americans, we've got a very short memory. But for them, anyone overseas, they've got a longer memory than we do. We take that 5-second soundbite, and that's all we care about. But they look at the long game and what did we do before, and what are we going to do now? And they compare the two, and they're going, I see an anomaly here. And if Trump can get past that with these negotiations, that'd be a blessing. But he's got to prove that we as a nation will keep our word. And that's, for them, very difficult. I'm not saying that, we're bad. It's just we have to look at the long game, too. Same way that they are. Yeah. And say, we guarantee this will not occur again. And I'm sure he's already far aware of that. So if you have 90 to 99.9% positive about this peace deal coming through, I'm saying this guy is probably hitting on all cylinders. And God bless you, the fact that he is our president now at this time. But I want to change the subject a little bit. Something that you reported on that caught Hannah's eye as well as mine about the geolocation of our military overseas.
Yeah. So there was a letter, or so back a few weeks, Senator Senator Wyden reached out to the Pentagon, raising concerns. There have been various reports going around that the Iranians were able to find U.S. troops deployed throughout the Middle East. And I had actually confirmed some reporting through the Pentagon back during the early days of the war, where there were 2 U.S. personnel in Bahrain in the Middle East. and they were injured when a drone struck their hotel room that they were staying at. They were not staying on a U.S. military base. They were inside of a hotel room that got hit. And we saw tons of these reports, oh, the Iranians are blowing up hotel rooms. But keep in mind that, there were also U.S. military personnel that were getting hit in some of these strikes. And it draws the concern of, okay, well, how are the Iranians able to figure out where they were staying? They weren't on a base. They're not, broadcasting where their location is, are they? Well, that was the question that I guess was thrown out there, is how did they figure it out? And, CENTCOM confirmed to Senator Wyden that, yes, indeed, we have seen reports and we have passed on these notifications. Hey, be concerned that your phone is basically, it's like it's like in Lord of the Rings. Like, you put on the ring, suddenly Sauron knows where you are.
Right.
Every time you're like messing with your phone, if you're not aware of your location features, they might be giving out information that is collected, by groups, and they're, not the most scrupulous with who they sell them to in bulk, and the Iranians may be able to collect that.
So what do we do?
Yeah, so one thing that was mentioned is that CENTCOM did activate the most high-level, security alert across, the Middle East for troops there, right on the day that the war started, February 28th. They put in their highest force protection measure. One could argue that might have been too little, too late. They might have considered doing that several weeks beforehand. Certainly, as the Iranians were watching U.S. troops mass in the region. One idea that was put out, not just by Senator Wyden, but it was actually a bipartisan group of lawmakers, in the House and Senate. They said Apple and Android both have a feature where you can turn off your unique advertising ID, which gives a lot, which connects to a lot of these location features. And so what the military essentially should do is, every time it issues a government, every time it provides somebody with a government issued phone, it should, before they issue it out, turn off that feature. They said this is actually a pretty straightforward process, but the military hasn't actually done it in a lot of cases, and only just recently have started to roll out this procedure. So that's something that they're just saying, hey, you as the military, when you're handing out phones that are government issued, do this automatically.
Mhm.
But then there's also the, soldiers have their own private personal phone. It's not their government issued one, where they're just saying, hey, you need to be aware that this thing is, a beacon to your location. Go into your settings and make sure all of those location data points are turned off for features that you don't need, and regularly go in and check and make sure that, that you're just broadcasting your location all the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm wondering, could they have also issued Faraday bags at the same time? Keep your phone inside a Faraday bag and only look at it just to check to see if there's anything you should be answering to.
I think you're talking, I think that kind of gets into two slightly different issues. Obviously a Faraday feature can block signals coming in and out of a phone, but, certainly once you turn it on and use your phone, then you're going to start,
Yeah.
you're going to start logging that kind of metadata that could be collected. So, certainly they do use Faraday cages, especially as you go into like, there are these secure facilities where you would go to like review classified information.
Like SCIFs.
Yeah, SCIFs. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Those Faraday cages are certainly in play as you go in and out of a SCIF. You drop off your phone. It's not going to be recording anything. It's not going to be collecting data while you're in that sensitive area.
Wow.
That's interesting.
I've got a whole lot of stuff here. I got a whole list over here. We talked about the nuclear stuff, and we don't know about secret stockpiles. The phone geolocation. Okay. will we be easing sanctions prior to any peace treaty or anything like that? Are we giving them anything? Or will these sanctions still stay in place until we get a final agreement? What's going on? Because we hear the Strait of Hormuz is being open, but not open. We don't know which way it's going.
Gas
Yeah.
is down.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
The stock market, my stocks, I'm down quite a bit.
Oh,
I'm going, this is ouch.
I haven't checked mine. I probably should.
Don't you'll freak
Yeah.
out.
No. I'll let it play out.
If I can answer your question, your sanctions question kind of holistically, there, our economic pressure campaign is kind of two-part. It is the sanctions, but it's also the blockade. Trump's message today, he said, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open. So he's telling the Iranians, knock it off, no threats to traffic. But he also said that the U.S. blockade will lift. So that will provide some economic relief to the Iranians. At the same time, Trump has said, we're not talking about giving them their money back, unfreezing their assets right now at the start of this thing. So he's not giving them he's not unfreezing any of their sanctioned assets to initiate this deal. But he has said that, if we see that the Iranians are complying, then we can start to ease these sanctions and release those assets to them. But that's something that's going to be down the line. And the Iranians have actually said the same thing. We're not expecting immediate sanctions relief to get this started, but we know that as this process moves on, that's something that is always going to be a sticking point for us, and we're going to want to see something on that. So that's kind of the trade-off that we're looking at, where the Iranians might be saying, okay, we'll give up our highly enriched uranium. You're going to release our assets, and we can all sing Kumbaya and try and move on to a better stage in our relationship.
Wow.
Here's open.
There's so much to go over, and sometimes it just makes my head spin with what's going on in the Middle East. But what are we looking at this point with what's going on with China?
When you say what's going on with China, are you talking, in relation to Iran, or?
Yeah, in relation to Iran. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the key takeaway, and actually it was Newt Gingrich that came out with a message earlier today talking about just sort of how this whole situation, the standoff over the last 3 months has played out, where he said, what's interesting is we can see that the U.S. has a functional alliance network, that we've seen with, the Europeans are starting to stand up and help do something with clearing the Hormuz. We have these regional, Arab allies like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain. They're willing to help us. But the Iranians really they have no allies, no state allies to call on. They can call on Hezbollah, they can call on their small little militias in Iraq, but these things are not power players. They're kind of these asymmetric. We can start fires and cause problems, but we can't really win a big on the battlefield victory here. And so what he's highlighting is that the Chinese and the Russians are not really stepping in to help the Iranians in any significant way. That there were some concerns that they'd share intelligence or try and funnel some weapons over, but nothing has been a game changer in terms of intelligence or weapons. It doesn't seem like the Chinese have ever really sealed any deal on any major weapons transport to the Iranians. Not that it would make much of a difference with the degradation of their military at this point. That being said, I do believe that Trump was kind of looking for a quicker resolution to the Iran thing, so that he could have kind of a stronger hand at the negotiating table back when he visited Beijing earlier this month. Keep in mind, Trump was originally planning to visit Beijing back in April, but he pushed that visit back to May, just because the Iran issue was still persistent. It hadn't resolved as quickly as he liked, and it was a big issue. The other thing to keep in mind is that the longer that this standoff plays out with the Iranians, we have actually paused our weapon shipments to Taiwan. the Navy Secretary last week said, you know, these weapon shipments are paused so that we can make sure that we have enough weapons to take on the Iranians. Well, that kind of does give the Chinese a little bit of a leg up in sort of the standoff with them in Taiwan. You know, if they were to attack today, there'd be fewer weapons on hand for the Taiwanese to use to try and contest any type of an invasion. But, you know, this is something that it's probably not going to happen in the immediate future. And the Trump administration is working to try and increase their weapon production output so that they can catch back up to speed, not only with weapon shipments to our allies and partners around the world, but also to replenish our stocks here in the United States. There was a report that was put out this week where it said that some of our weapons capacity has been depleted so much that it would take between 2 and 6 years to finally get up to the stockpile level that we had before the start of the Iran war.
Wow, I missed that one. That's big news.
Yeah, because I was watching what was going on when Pakistan fell. I mean, that was a disaster. And that narrow corridor between China and Pakistan was now wide open. It gave them a foothold to go into the Middle East and make allies with all these Middle Eastern nations, with their oil supplies as well as their rare earth minerals, which Pakistan is rife with. So China's happy with that. So they're going to remain somehow aligned with us and Iran so they can continue their sweep through the Middle East. They're still looking for that one world global dream of Mao Zedong.
Yeah, I would say that the Iranians, or I'm sorry, not the Iranians, the Chinese, they have, as communist as they are, they have internalized one lesson of capitalism, and that's, be able to adjust, make some adjustments, capitalize on the present conditions and make those adjustments. And certainly we're going to see that the Chinese will adjust their playbook as time goes on. Sometimes they're looking at, there's nothing we can do in Afghanistan per se because the Americans are there. Then the Americans leave and they start saying, we can get friendly with the Taliban. We don't really have any issue with them, and we can get in and start to get access to their critical minerals there. And we've certainly seen that they are willing to go into Africa where there's tons of mineral resources, and they can certainly put on a good face and say, hey, we'll do these infrastructure projects, we'll help develop your nation, and sign on this dotted line here in the fine print that you acknowledge that when we help you out, you're going to give us some really cushy deals for some access to your minerals.
All right. Well, before we let you go, there's one thing I discussed with Vicky, and I don't know if she passed this on to you, but there's a gentleman, loosely termed gentleman, running for Nancy Mace's seat here in South Carolina, which is a pivotal seat, who has lied about his military history, which I thought was straight up your wheel well. He was sentenced for 5 years to prison for his participation in the Charlottesville riots, giving Nazi salutes and holding a torch. He also was sentenced again to the J6ers, where he was videoed snatching a shield, which is a defensive weapon for peaceful crowd control, from an officer, hitting him with it, as well as giving the Nazi salute. So he's got 2 convictions, felony convictions against him, a dishonorable discharge. And I don't know if Vicky gave you that information, but I'd like to follow up on that, because that's a strong seat there in Congress that may go to a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, to be honest, I have to claim ignorance. I haven't been tracking that particular race. I'm not even closely familiar with this individual, but yeah, that's a pretty complicated history. Every cycle you do see some people with some big political ambitions that might be a little too large for for their resume. But I can't really comment further without knowing more about the details.
Well, I'll send you some links.
Okay.
Yeah, because I still run a tea party, and I just invited this individual once I found out what his background was. And he did a big wrong, which turned around and says, listen, I was going to let it slide, but now at this point, it's down and dirty.
Wow. So you didn't take it well.
No, I am a very giving and generous individual, and you've got to really push me over in order to get the Italian in me to say, no, I've had enough. So I'll shoot that over to you, and we'll talk, right? So people can find you at the epochtimes.com. And God bless you for the hard work you do over there, because you really, really open a lot of people's eyes. You do fantastic work there. We love
Sharp guy. Yep.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. God bless. Take care. All right.
You too.
We've got our next victim in the green room. So as soon as I see his smiling face, I'll bring him on. There we go. We got the smile.
That's my cue.
That's his cue. Chief John Chell, NYPD, retired. And yet, John, I just want to let you know that we do every show a dedication to a fallen hero. And the dedication I did was to Moss. I did that. So if you go back and play the beginning of the show, you'll see. And matter of fact, it had another friend of mine, someone I worked with, who was originally my PBA delegate, Patrick J. Lynch. I can't say that name.
Patty Lynch. Patty Lynch.
Patty.
Huh?
Patty. Everyone knows him as Patty. And I saw him standing there with the widow. And God bless Patty. He's a fireball. I think the best thing we did was elect him.
Patty was quite the orator. He could really speak. He was very impressive. Communication is key.
It's the Irish in him. It was definitely.
Well, the small Irish in me after this is gonna hit the pub after this. I've been on TV all day today. It's my last one, and I'm gonna hit the pub.
There you go.
God bless.
Have a
God
drink
bless.
on me. I would like that. Yeah.
I'm retired now. I can do these things.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
You can do them when you're like if you're not retired, if you're good at it, Oh, I forget he's a chief. Never mind. I can't say that.
You always got to play like a champion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I retired just 2 years before, a little less than 2 years before Officer Mosomillo was killed. But one thing, I remember the name, not because of his death, but I think I met him at one of our Columbia Association meetings. I was the representative for Brooklyn North.
Okay, strong possibility. Brooklyn South and Brooklyn North. Brooklyn South and Brooklyn North, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, a guy out of the 6-7 recently wrote a book, and I got to get a hold of him. He was the lieutenant in my precinct, which was the 9-0, as we say, the 9 Chocho.
He wrote a book. I wonder who it is.
Joe Raynone. He retired as a lieutenant shortly before I retired.
Joe Raynone.
Name
sounds familiar.
He was anti-crime, and he was instrumental in the day stalkers, they called them, that did the pushing Roberts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm currently writing a book now with a very high-powered writer and their agent, and I just finished my proposal. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to be it's all going to be inside baseball. The last 4 years in this crazy administration.
I mean,
you got a title yet?
We're playing around with some things, but I tell you, the last 4 years, 4 police commissioners, federal indictments, overtime scandals, sex scandals, trying to bring crime down, 225,000 migrants, Southern District all over you. Woof, it was a lot.
So is this a political book or is this more of a memoir? Like, I mean, what are you merging your experience?
This is more of it's not a memoir because that gets boring, and it's not about how we brought crime down. That gets boring. It's about what really went on behind the scenes as we navigated everything we had to navigate in a crazy political world. And, I ended up being like the shadow police commissioner at times because I was always the one who was put out there in front of the camera, humbly speaking, to convey the message. And, it comes with a lot of that. The loyalty comes at a price tag. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, It does. It does. There's a lot of politics that go on behind the scenes. Because I remember when I came in, we had I called him Out of Town Brown is the PC, and Mayor. I'm going to say, I haven't said this on the air, but we called him Mayor Dickless. Mayor Dickless.
Well, now we got. I just called our current mayor, and I don't get, I don't get into identity stuff, but I did call him the chameleon Mondelium. He changes his tune every 2 seconds.
Oh, no. Mine is Mon damn me.
Well, listen, he's definitely a Mondelium, and he definitely played 3-card Mondami with the budget, no doubt about it.
Matter of fact, over my shoulder, I just see it on the camera. That's a picture with Rudy Giuliani when he ran for mayor the first time, and Joe Renone.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, I see it.
That's Joe Renone. Because the Columbia Association and Giuliani, we backed him, and he walked in our Columbus Day parade. And Andrew Giuliani was just a little tight back then. And I actually grabbed him and yelled at him because at the dinner, actually the breakfast just before the parade, he was running around hitting all the cops in the back of the head.
Yeah. Well, you see this. You see this picture on my shoulder. I was at the golf course with the president, and Andrew was in his golf in his foursome, and we knew that if we posted this, the media was going to go bananas, and we posted it just to antagonize him.
Oh man, those were the days. Those were the days. Actually, you threw your hat in the ring a while back to run for mayor as an independent.
Yeah.
And you probably have a very, very good chance of succeeding as an independent to become mayor of New York, because I think New York City is quite disgusted with what's going on and the crime going on in the city now.
Well, I think by the time we get to basically the winter of 29 and before that, by the time we get to primary season, this city is going to be such in bad shape. I don't think anyone cares what party you're from, what you look like, any of that garbage. They're going to say, who can fix this mess? And if you look at look, when President Trump came down the escalator, they laughed at him. They laughed at him. They literally laughed at him. Now we call him President 45 and 47. Zora Mandami, when his name popped up in Queens, a year and a half ago, nobody could pronounce his name. Now we call him Mr. Mayor. Spencer Pratt in L.A., you call them out on their policy and how it worked. You had a little social media and a little camera prowess, and anyone, if you think about it, anyone can run for mayor if they got that kind of apparatus. It's not rocket science here. It's practical application of what's right and what's wrong. Simple as that.
Well said.
Yeah, because you have where you talk about yourself on your various social links, that you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, you're kind of like a little mix of both. Not quite a libertarian, but you are your own man, which is why you are running as an independent.
Right. To me, honestly, it's what's in your heart. And I'm not perfect, and we can't all agree, but what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And if we disagree on that, that's fine, but let's just find a middle ground. I just, I'm very hard on the Democratic left, because I just think, what they stand for is just, for my opinion, is just totally wrong what we need. I like the moderate Democrat. I like the moderate Republican. I like people who could talk and have a conversation. And sometimes you win the conversation, sometimes you lose it. You agree to disagree, but it keeps the ball moving down the field. You're never going to get to the 15% of lunatics on the left and right. You're just not going to get there. So count them out. Bring it to the kitchen table where people are worried about their electric bill, their food bill, the safety of their children going to school, the education they're receiving in school. Those are the tabletop issues that people want to talk about. And most people can have a conversation about that and meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. There was a time where we could sit down, even if we were on opposite sides of the political aisle, and we can break bread. We can have a couple of drinks together. You can have a civil conversation. But we have such vitriol and divide. So you must be either A or you must be either B. And there's no in between. I remember sitting at a bar, having a cocktail with a good friend of mine.
What she does best.
Well, it's not a bad place to
It's an art.
it's an art
I
form.
make,
Listen, you got to play like you said. When you go to the bar, you have to play like a champion at all
yeah.
times.
Well, I may be half Italian and German, but hey, I like my scotch. But anyway, especially a good one. But I was sitting there. We looked up at the TV. Something was going on the TV, and he starts yelling at the TV. I looked up at what was going on there, and I said, "See, we can agree on something." I don't like that either. But that's where we have to find that where we can come together. You got your crazy Uncle Joe that'll go to your Christmas dinner or your Easter party, whatever, but you got along. And then when crazy Uncle Joe left, you went, "Shh." But hey, you still loved each other and you still cared about each other. And we don't have that in society today.
Well, I think we've
No,
also had,
so
in
yeah,
defense of the American public, we've had some honestly quite polarizing political pundits, I guess you could say. I mean, Biden was polarizing, and so is Trump. I mean, at the end of the day, whichever one you agree with, they're polarizing figures. And so I think people have kind of taken that and ran with it, and we've kind of lost all common courtesy and couth. Everybody's uncouth about politics nowadays, and everything's so political.
yeah.
So
Yeah, you know, you're right. And sometimes I try to be, sometimes even I'm hypocritical about what I say. Sometimes you get hooked into a conversation, you're a little snarky, you get a little whatever. But what really has taken over the political arena is social media. A lot of these elected officials, it's just so performative. It's not genuine. I just did a news show before. Do you think, like, when it comes to like the migrant situation, and I said this on a Chris Cuomo show, and he was shocked I said it. I go, look, the majority of migrants that are here are good, hardworking people, religious. They're here. Give them a path, an easy path to join the role, if you will, to contribute to society, and it just makes you stronger. Conversely, the people that came here to really victimize our communities, our friends, our families, you're a guest in our home until you see a judge. But then if you're going to commit crimes while you're here, you got to go. That's just, I think most people would say, yeah, he's right. I'm not saying we're not going to throw out 15 million people. It's not happening. It's just whatever. It's not happening. And like I said, the vast majority are here to partake. So let them partake and let's move on. And with the border's secure now, so keep it secured. We have who we have, who's staying, who's going, and let's move on. Let's go.
With you being in New York City, John, I'm sure you've got some inside knowledge about how hard being essentially a sanctuary police state has been on the officers themselves.
That's a great question. Here's the hardest part. And again, now we get back into politics. So when the police department, when ICE is out there doing their job, if you will, we as an NYPD, or they as an NYPD, they can't coordinate those activities. It's against the law, full stop. That's it. Okay, the law is the law. But when it comes to responding to their physical safety, even the safety of the protesters, the law enforcement took an oath to protect and serve. So, but now the elected officials say, "Oh, they're not coordinating with ICE. They're protecting ICE to protecting protesters, to protecting people in the community." That's probably the hardest piece. But if you bring it back, can you imagine you were just allowed to notify ICE for someone bad in your custody, not, someone who's not bad, who, committed a minor violation. We could put that to the side. You know the people I'm talking about, the ones like, wow, this guy's bad. If you're allowed to just coordinate with ICE to come get them, you wouldn't have half these videos in the streets. You wouldn't have it. You wouldn't have it. So the point is, like we've been getting at, it's a middle ground. We got to strike the middle ground here. We're not throwing out 15 million people, so that's just a red meat talking point. But there is an arena where we can go after the bad ones that hurt us, our family, our friends, our community. To me, that's a simple approach to it.
No, you're exactly right about the sanctuary agreements and whatnot. I mean, when we can't peacefully transfer a criminal illegal alien into ICE custody, it shifts it into the public spaces, and it creates greater risks for everyone involved, including the officers. And so it'd be interesting to see. I don't think there may be a handful of jurisdictions in New York State that have 287G agreements, but obviously New York City. No,
Hochul just signed the bill 287G to eliminate the 14 jurisdictions that were left. So that's all off the board now. It would be complete clean. And here's the thing, again, so now social media, takes those 15, 30-second clips and whatever algorithm you subscribe to, the left and the right, it constantly feeds you what you want to see. So there's so much that goes into that, but I think it's all performative, most of it. And is it more about the immigrants or is it anti-Trump? I'd probably go anti-Trump.
You're muted, Annie.
There we go. There we go. I remember when we used to make the arrest, we were not allowed to notify ICE if we knew for a fact. And that was under, believe it or not, Giuliani too. He kept that in place. And
if Annie, if you remember the old online booking sheet, probably in the top 5 lines it asks you about your citizenship. Remember that?
Yes, it did.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yes, and you would write, like I work in these flappers, so it was a Caribbean neighborhood, so you always write like, Jamaican or Guyanese or, but that's whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. But you turn in the booking sheet to the desk officer and they said, well, you put that down here, you got to take it off and redo the sheet.
Yeah.
So you can't even win at that point. We would take it, an aided case, which means someone that needed medical attention. You take an aided case and you're standing there as the person's getting checked in by the admission staff. And the person has 4 or 5 different Medicaid cards with different names on it. I had one guy who says, why do you have so many? Oh, my friends asked me to hold it for them.
Sure.
Annie,
I got
Annie, let me ask you a question. When you were doing those aided cards and you had to make a notification, did you ask one of their friends, hey, what's your name? You're his cousin, right? Yep, notified.
I mean, you and I could probably tell stories up the wazoo.
Oh, I got them all right.
Yeah.
I bet.
Matter of fact, we had the sheriff was running against a local guy, and the individual that was running was one of his sheriffs, and he had a problem with veracity. So listeners don't know what that is. It's telling the truth. And I pulled out my memo book. My first day on patrol, straight out of the police academy, was in front of number 10 Driggs Avenue. That should ring a bell to you. That was the building Serpico was shot in. Within the first few hours, I had my first arrest. So you know where we're coming from when we talk about these things. These are firsthand experiences. But if now the state is going to honor 287G, and I got to tell you, Hannah happens, she says investigations manager, immigration investigator manager for FAIR, which is the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Formerly, she was with Heritage Foundation. So when you talk about immigration, she's the person talking. But seeing now New York is now saying 287G is going to be statewide, as I understand you.
No, they're getting rid of it statewide.
They're getting rid of it.
Oh.
It'll be a cold day in hell before New York State said you have to have mandatory 287G.
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
and they're mandating. First of all, what is it? The what's that clause? You can't lock up federal agents. Not happening. The federal supersedes state law.
Supremacy clause.
Yeah, supremacy, correct. And unless the agent does something so outrageous,
right?
Different kind. It's not a complete no, but it's not as easy as they seem to put it. But again, you want to take off. Look, I'm not a fan of wearing masks. Okay. I get why they're doing it, but I never have an opportunity to wear a mask. And people knew my address. They knew I had solar panels on my roof. They threatened my wife. I've been there before. But since we're talking about masks, why don't you wanna curtail protests? Have a law where it's a misdemeanor to wear a mask at a protest. And if you violate that law, a misdemeanor is punishable up to 364 days a year. And I'm not suggesting that someone should go to jail for a year for wearing a mask. But you put someone in a mask in jail for a couple of days on Rikers Island, I guarantee you they might not show up in the next protest. And if they do, they will not be wearing a mask.
Perhaps not.
True. Absolutely true. One of the things that gets me really crazy is that Mandami, when he was running, said he's for all the people of the city of New York.
Yeah.
And as he's now in office, it's all the people in the city of New York, except those who are Jewish.
I just brought this up now. I'd rather him just come out and say that I don't support Israel and I'm not a fan of the Jewish. Just say it. Nobody would fall off their chair. But what you can't do is host Jewish events at Gracie Mansion like you did a couple weeks ago and show that show that performative media circus to us, and in the same token, yesterday, say I'm not gonna walk with the Jewish people to celebrate their pride, just like he walks with every other parade we have in this city to support that community where they're from and the pride they have. He wants things both ways. He realizes that capitalism, vis-a-vis Wall Street money, is saving the city. But then you're going to show up at Ken Griffin's house and basically dox him to the world, to him and a company that pays $1 billion, $1 B as in $1 billion a year in taxes. You can't have it both ways. And that's being disingenuous, and that's why I call him Mondelian the Chameleon, or Chameleon Mondelian, whichever way you want to go with it. But it's insulting to just regular people like ourselves when you sit and listen to this. It bothers you because you're insulting our intelligence. Just say, I do not like the Jewish regime. I do not like Israel. I don't like them. Okay, we know. Okay, fine. You might not like it, but you said it. Fine, we move on. But stop playing this game with us. It's not healthy. It's insulting.
What he has done, he's gone after those that produce the wealth in the city. Period. End of report. Everything we see him doing actually destroys the capitalistic system that we adore and created. He's now going after landlords. If you don't maintain your building to the way we say you should be maintaining it, you don't keep the rents down to what we say they should be, X, Y, Z, we're going to take over your building and we're going to run it. You either run it the way we're telling you to run it, or we're going to take it over and we're going to run it ourselves. But we've seen the result of that in the city of New York with the housing projects. What a failure that was.
All right. So first of all, in this $123 billion budget, I hope he earmarked money for litigation, because no judge is going to let you take my property. And who's the arbiter, like to your point, of what's right and what's wrong? The virtue signaling to NYCHA public housing is disturbing. Housing to me is probably my second issue in terms of public housing and what I'm going to run on after public safety, because public housing is primarily minority, fine. But these are people that are generationally here, families, great people that have contributed to New York City. And every year they get the short end of the stick. So they need about 80 billion in capital repairs. That's how dilapidated. So housing exists for them. True New Yorkers who make up the fabric of this city. And he's going to give them $5.6 billion over 5 years. When you do the math, he's going to repair 7% of what they need. How about we fix the housing? How about we just reverse it? Fix the housing we do have vis-a-vis public housing, right? Do a 5-year, $100 billion commitment to that, and then try to build 200,000 houses, which you're not going to build. It's just a pipe dream for the people that, and who are we building housing for? Let's be honest. I would say 20. If you look up look it up, 25% of the homeless people are mentally ill and drug addicts. That's then they need help, not a home per se.
Don't you understand? It's a human right. It's a civil right. It's my constitutional right to have free housing.
Well, how about this? I would love in retirement. I went to the Carlisle Theater, the Carlisle Hotel the other night, and I had to drive from my home in Staten Island. Man, I would love to have a second home up on Madison Avenue, but guess what? I can't afford it. I don't ask people to pay for me. This is the sad reality. New York is the most expensive city in the United States, and some people just can't afford to live here. I know it hurts to say that, but the market is the market, whether you agree or not, and prices are going up. Rent is not going to be frozen. This is just rhetoric that he sells to a certain segment of his population, to the kids who majored in the melting habits of Antarctica ice and thought they were coming out and getting a job for $250,000 a year. Not happening. Not happening.
I mean, there's so much that has gone wrong.
I never understood New York City's rent control. I'm sorry, there was a delay. I was just saying I've never understood the rent control policy, how that worked or how it was even enforced. It's still in effect in some places, right?
Yeah, they inherit. the family inherits the apartment, so it's kept at that rate that the person before them, the aunt, uncle, grandma, whatever had, it's frozen.
Right, and if you could pass it to a generation one time, so if someone's paying $1,000 a month, your grandma's paying $1,000 a month, she's been there for 40 years. Now she wants to pass it to you. It's a one-time transfer. They can't take that 1,000 and make it 3,000. They might do some repairs. It goes up a little bit, and then normal rent control. Usually 1 year is 2%, 2 years is 4%. It's always fell in that arena. Oh, every year they vote on it, so it goes up incrementally. But look, it's become very expensive, and like I said, he's not controlling rent. He's not freezing rent. And how about the landlord? How about the righteous landlord that invested their money into a building, maybe in their community, to do whatever they want with? They bought it legally. They're trying to upkeep it, but now they're going to be shunned and they can't pay their bills. It's whatever.
I mean, there's so much to go over with what's going on in New York City and why we need someone like you to become the next mayor. How many things you're going to have to undo that Mandami has been doing. I love the idea of free transportation, free subway, free bus, but where do you find the majority of homeless staying? In the subway and on the buses.
Right, and look, we brought in congestion pricing, which I don't agree with. Right, we've already had about 6,000 businesses leave in the last couple of years. Right.
Wow.
You bring in you bring in congestion pricing because you gotta match budgetary shortfalls in MTA, but you lose about $800 million a year to people jumping the turnstile, if you will, in the subway system. Now, I'm not talking about the student or the person who needs a little help. We get it. I've let people in the subway for free who look downtrodden, and you got to be a little benevolent.
Yeah.
But there's a whole swath of people that just don't pay. Again, you arrest them and put them in jail for a couple of days, they're gonna pay. But we're in this world post bail reform, and we're in this world where the cop is a bad guy and the bad guy is a good guy, that there's no consequences, so people do whatever the hell they want to do. It's upside down what we're doing here. So for me personally, I'm just going to be me. I'm not subscribing to any party because these parties got us in this boat. I'm just going to be me. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. I got nothing to lose here. But I'm going to stay independent until something tells me otherwise. But until that moment, I'm just going to be me.
Well, there's so many more questions I want to go after with you, but we're down to our last 2 minutes of the show. Have you set up a webpage yet for your campaign?
No, I think I'll start probably dabbling into that kind of paperwork in mid 27-ish. I still got a lot of time. I'm just gonna, I'm an outsider. I'm not an elected official. I'm gonna just keep doing my homework, stay relevant in the subject, in the policies that I see that I like and don't like, and start fundraising next year. I got a lot of people reached out to me, and look, Mandami, Trump, everyone laughed at them. Now they're Mr. Mayor and Mr. President.
All right. We'll have to have him back on.
Well, I was to Giuliani's inauguration when he ran the first time. So if you win, you're going to invite me up? Now, I'm in the South now. I may not have been born in the South, but I got here as soon as I could. But maybe for you, I'll take a trip.
I'll ship you up. We'll have a couple of scotches or whiskeys, whatever you like. It'll be on the Gracie Mansion account, so don't worry about it. and then we'll get you. And Hannah, you can come too. We'll get you all home in one piece.
Swell. I'll hold you to it.
Now listen, nothing wrong with a little snippet.
Well, Chief, it's been a pleasure, and we're gonna have you back on again. All right.
Anytime. I love to talk policing in the world, and anytime. Like, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. God bless. Take care.
Bye-bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Chief John Chell, God bless him. Look for his website coming up in the next year or so.
He was great. He's the type of person that you have on as one guest for the show. I mean, he's got a plethora of knowledge. So, and easy to talk to as well. So, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, so he must have come on somewhere around the time I did. because Mosomillo was on the job for 14 years. I retired 2 years before he was killed, so I think he was
And
probably one of my
John. You knew John when you were in New York, right?
When I saw his picture, it hit me that I remembered the face. I got a very visual memory. You write something down, I may not always remember it, but if I see it.
Well, even when I Googled him, he looks familiar. I know I've seen a press conference with him before. It's
possible.
Yeah.
He's been on NEWSMAX and everything else. But
Yeah.
we're out of time, Hannah. Can you believe it?
There we have it.
Well, we'll say same bat time, same bat station. Until next time, we will be here.